The offseason just keeps getting better and better. Paul George has been traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder in exchange for Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis. This obviously signals the Pacers' rebuild as they traded away their star player in exchange for two young talents, but more people are curious as to what this means for the Thunder. Is pairing Paul George with Russell Westbrook enough to make the Thunder a championship contender? What's up guys, welcome to MDJ, my name is Mark, and I am currently running on 5 hours of sleep. Mostly because the NBA just won't let people rest. So let's dive into this trade before I fall asleep. When we look at the duo of Paul George and Russell Westbrook, it's easy for us to first compare this new duo with the old duo, Kevin Durant and Russ. And while there's a good amount of similarities between Paul George and Kevin Durant, both can defend, both great shooters, both athletic, both great in isolation, there's one big difference, and that's that Paul George does not need the ball nearly as much as Kevin Durant does. Last season, in 2017, Paul George posted a usage rate of 28.9% while assisting on 60% of the shots his teammates made. In Durant's final season in OKC, those numbers were 30.6 and 24.2 respectively. And that's a pretty significant difference. Now this is important because we all saw how Westbrook and KD often struggled with who should have the ball, especially during crunch time and especially towards the end of their partnership. With Paul George, it's much clearer that the ball will still be in Westbrook's hands the majority of the time, and that Paul George will act as more of an off-ball weapon that the Thunder can utilize. Speaking of off-ball, the Thunder are getting one of the best shooters in the NBA in Paul George. With players like Paul George and Kevin Durant, because of how well-rounded they are and how many scoring tools they have in their arsenal, we often forget the fact that even if you take away everything else that makes them great, they are simply great shooters. Now, statistically, Paul George looks like a league average shooter, but remember that's taking into consideration the fact that Paul George was the #1 option on the Pacers all these years, that he was taking pull-up threes and also contested spot-up jumpers. Just like how in my Chris Paul James Harden video, I talked about how Chris Paul will turn James Harden into a statistically elite three-point shooter, the same principle goes here. Russell Westbrook will get Paul George many more open looks, and Paul George himself will need to create a lot less looks for himself. And while Westbrook has had the fortune of playing with a Paul George caliber player before in his career, Paul George has never had a teammate nearly as good as Westbrook, especially offensively. Early in his career, he had Danny Granger, who was good, but obviously not Westbrook good, and then he had a lot of success, but mainly because the Pacers were a great defensive team, where his second options were Lance Stevenson and David West, and then last year, he had Jeff Teague. Again, no one close to the type of offensive talent that is Westbrook, the reigning MVP. And for Westbrook, this solves the problem, possibly the biggest reason why the Thunder were only the 6th seed and got beat by Houston in 5. And that's that Westbrook's usage rate last season was too damn high. He had the ball too much and he was doing too much. Like I explained in my free agency preview video, take a look at history and you'll see that the championship winning teams never have their superstar doing that much. And while I'm pretty confident that Westbrook will not average a triple-double next season with the addition of Paul George, I'm sure Thunder fans and Westbrook fans will be happy to see OKC winning a lot more games instead. This next year, when Westbrook runs out of gas like he did in the fourth quarters against Houston, he can now comfortably take a break, whether that means sitting on the bench for an extra minute or just letting Paul George have a couple possessions and let him do his thing while you recover on offense. That also means that Westbrook will be able to pay more attention on defense. I hate to say it, but it's true. Westbrook was a horrendous defender last year. And that's not all his fault because he was doing everything on offense and he just didn't have the physical nor mental energy to play defense consistently. Now, I expect to see a lot more effort from Westbrook defensively, and effort is the only thing wrong with his defense because he clearly has all the tools to be good defensively. Speaking of defense, if the Thunder re-sign Roberson, which I hope will happen, you will now have 2 elite defenders at the forward position. One thing we've learned from watching Golden State is that you can never have enough good wing defenders, especially as the league gets smaller and smaller and more perimeter oriented. However, this trade does come with some risks. The biggest one being that Paul George will be a free agent next year in 2018. And it's not exactly a secret that he really wants to join the Lakers. The Thunder are giving up the 2013 second overall pick, Victor Oladipo, as well as Sabonis, who some people think can be really good, some people think at best can be Ryan Anderson. Either way, there's no doubt that this is a risky move. But again, when you're going up against Golden State, and now the Rockets with Chris Paul, you gotta make some risky moves if you want to contend. And because of that, I am in full favor of this move, especially seeing as the Oladipo plus Westbrook tandem failed miserably last year. So, with all that in mind, we now ask, does this make the Thunder contenders? And I'm going to say, it makes them fringe contenders. Now, everyone has different definitions of contenders. For me personally, it's pretty simple. Are you one of the top 2 teams in your conference? Because history has shown us that the vast majority of championships come from either the first or second seeds. So just based off of today, with no other significant additions, I would still take the Warriors and the Spurs and maybe even the Rockets ahead of OKC. But regardless, like I said, I like this trade for OKC. I think it was the right move. Go ahead, drop your thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you think this was a good trade? Does this trade make the Thunder contenders? And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. This channel will be your destination for all the big free agency moves and offseason moves that we're going to cover. And if you want to get notifications when my videos drop, make sure to hit that bell icon next to the subscribe icon. Other than that, thanks for watching. My name is Mark, aka MDJ. I'll see you probably pretty soon because the offseason is crazy. But anyways, I'll see you soon.
Feeling kinda strange, feeling kinda off. Don't know what's really going on. I feel like something's up and I can only guess the cause. It doesn't matter when, doesn't matter where. Always hits me when I'm unprepared.